Clark is a representative to our legislative body, is still here, and I would ask that questions might be directed that he could have the mayor send back to us in writing.
We will leave the record open in order to give the mayor an opportunity to respond.
Yes.
Put the questions in writing to the mayor, because I'm certain that you have certain questions that you would like to get answered.
Yeah, our city is severely hurting, and we've had to let thousands of employees off, and particularly in the urban areas. I know that the mayor has really sought to protect firemen and firefighters, and of course our police in this city. The need is so great, and so we will direct some questions, Mr. Clark, to you, and you can have the mayor answer. With the two of you, and I appreciate your testimony, you're small in population, but large in need. Had we not had the stimulus package, Mayor Morris, what would have happened in your city and Mayor Reed? I think you've already indicated what it would be like in terms of loss of jobs, but can you continue?
Let me give you an example. You gave us a re-energized COPS program. That was critical to our city. We had held about 23 positions vacant in our police department. We have a serious issue of public safety in our city. And having those vacancies was deeply concerning to me as mayor, working on this issue of public safety. The COPS program allowed us to backfill 15 of those positions. We're in the hiring process right now. Those are critical positions to make our city a safer place to live and work and educate our children. So that was a major $5 million boost in funding for public safety. That already making a difference in terms of safety.
I can give you a couple of some of the history about the job creation. We've been awarded roughly $15 million for transportation, which we're using for street surfacing. Well, we haven't spent all $15 million. You can't spend it all at once. We have lots and lots of streets and lots of work to be done, and that's nowhere nearly enough to cover our needs. But there are people working today, surfacing roads today, who wouldn't be working today without that money. And because we do a series of contracts, those people are going to keep working for a long time as we spend that money. So the fact that we've only created a few jobs with $15 million is not the measure of the impact, because you have to look at how long those jobs are going to last, not just spend $15 million and you only got a few jobs, because those people will be working for some period of time as we roll out the contracts. So that's one area where it's easy for people to misunderstand why there are so few jobs for that kind of award. We also put to work last summer, probably the first money that arrived was for summer jobs for youth. So we put to work 800 young people based on the criteria in the Act. These kids had some disadvantages in their lives. There were some difficulties, and that was the criteria. We put 800 kids to work. It was only a summer program, but those kids got some real money for their families, and they got some job training. They got exposure to the kinds of things that they need to do to get into the workforce. So we got the money, we spent the money, and we had an impact. Although those jobs are not permanent, but each and every one of those kids benefited from it, our city benefited from it. And we didn't spend all the money last summer, so we'll do it again this summer, because we have the money divided into this summer.
If the two of you could reiterate your recommendations, we have been considering in Washington to send monies directly to school districts, maybe to cities, to counties, and so on, rather than going through the archaic structure of the governor of Sacramento. There are often differences in the largest state in the union, 38 million people, as you see through the lens of state government and as you see to your own local areas. So why don't you reiterate those recommendations?
Mayor Villaraigosa eloquently stated that the metropolitan areas of the state have been the hardest hit by this massive recession. And we need to focus on those cities and regions where we have that great disconnect between life as a healthy place and life in disaster. So direct funding is of the block grant type that I've suggested, I think is critical. Go through the state. That filtering system leaves a lot of money on the table in Sacramento. And there is, and you've served up there, many of you on this in Congress. You know this, I used the word Byzantine before, and that's true. To get money out of Sacramento in ways that make sense sometimes is very, very challenging. So block grant funding of the CDBG type is just deeply appreciated, and we can put it to work. And we are creative frontline leaders. We're innovators at the city level, in the county level. We know what the problems are and how to resolve those issues. So you need to understand that direct funding mechanism. You put it to effect in the energy program you articulated for us. That's very, very helpful to us. As I told you before in my testimony, using those dollars in a way that combines them, in our case, with AB 811 structures, we're going to stimulate a whole new green economy, largely attributable to your creativity of a direct grant program, a block type program in the city.
There are some areas in which the existing formulas and the money went through the state, I think work fairly well. In transportation, for example, because we got some of the earliest money through the transportation distribution through the state to the metropolitan planning organizations onto the regions. But there is a delay anytime it has to go to the state to go through that process before it actually gets into circulation. And direct funding to the cities, the block grant program is probably the fastest way to get the money into circulation. We have another problem with direct funding from the states, at least in transportation, because our Metropolitan Transportation Commission in Northern California, which San Jose participates, is not representative on a population basis. It is not one person, one vote. San Jose being the largest city in the region, third largest in the state, Santa Clara County, are both underrepresented, so the representation tends to be a little more rural, a little more, as Mayor DeRogatis so eloquently put it, building things from ducks to geese is a possibility when the money goes through the states. And I know that many other states and other big cities, it's a bigger problem even in California.
I'm going to yield some time to Assemblywoman Richardson because she raised a key question about education, and I'd like to respond. But there are two procedures in the formula, and I want you to respond to them. Maintenance of effort and a local match or statewide match. And most often, states are really suffering under maintaining the effort at the same level and matching the funds that come in. So can you comment on those two?
Maintenance of effort has not been a big issue for the city because most of our funding that's come in has been for specified projects and specified things, and we're spending it in accordance to the guidelines. That was one of our concerns last year when Mayor DeRogatis and I were in Washington talking to Congress about how do we ensure that the states maintain their efforts, because the states have a fairly poor record when it comes to that. So that's been an issue for us, and I can't comment directly on what the state has done, but I think they're going to have some experts here speaking pretty shortly.
And I'll raise the question.
But the local match is always a problem, given the kind of budget problems that local governments are having in California now, in particular. San Jose will have a budget gap next year greater than 10% of the general fund. So every general fund dollar is very precious, and we will undoubtedly have some cases where we just can't afford to do the match, even though you're going to give us 3/4 of the money.
The gentlewoman's time has expired, and the gentlewoman from Ms. Richardson will have her own time, it's just a matter of time. So we're now calling Councilman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask a question about the flow of money and whether that's going smoothly. I know that cities have had to put up money up front for the early projects. And one thing that struck me is LA's struggle with this flow of money. They were awarded $600 million, but only received $16 million, and then had to spend $31 million, mostly by taking out loans and waiting to be reimbursed. So this places a very significant burden on localities to put the money up front when it's difficult in these economic times to get credit, not to mention the interest problem. So I'm wondering what the situation has been for your cities with regard to the flow of money and how ours is coming down.
Quite frankly, Congresswoman, I am not sure that we have suffered the kind of disabilities that the Mayor of LA has offered to you this afternoon. We have, on our COP strength that I've discussed, that money has flowed. And we're in the hiring process as we speak. Our dollars for the I-215, this major $125 million that we needed, has come speedily to the table. And we have kept thousands employed in highway construction as a result of that. So I can't, I don't know enough about LA's problems in terms of cash flow, but I've not heard from our regional transportation group or our city manager that we've had difficulty in receiving those dollars.
We have been awarded roughly $70 million. We've spent approximately $16 million and have been reimbursed about $8 million. So we're spending it and getting reimbursed, and that's something we've been able to handle in part because it's not all coming out of the general fund. We have some enterprise funds, and it's a little bit different. So I would say that we're not in trouble because of that. Cash flow will probably be an issue, especially in this next budget year as our cash reserves continue to go down. And I had just one other fact that I was talking about the transportation street resurfacing here. So we were awarded $15 million. We spent $173,000, been reimbursed $33,000, and created 26 jobs. So 26 jobs doesn't sound like a lot for $15 million. So we haven't spent $15 million. And we're spending the money, we'll get reimbursed, we'll spend it and get reimbursed. So that'll help us in the cash flow on street transportation service.
I wonder if you've had similar problems that the mayor was talking about, where a job was given to city employees, but then they were told that they had to have jobs that were contracted out instead, and it forces the city to really fire 139 workers who actually were doing jobs that were part of this our project anyway.
By and large, most of our spending has been on contracts with private sector companies, and so we've not put a lot of city employees to work doing that, so it's not been a big problem for us. We don't have the same problem that LA has experienced. Although we will be laying off city employees, there's no doubt about it, but that's not a result of anything having to do with the stimulus package.
Yes, I yield back.
Thank you very much. That's something new. We don't get too many people to yield back. So I want you to know,
Can I take the time?
you caught me off surprise. Councilwoman Napolitano.
Thank you, Chairman Towns. And just a lot of questions. I wish, like you, that Mayor Villalobos had stayed a little bit longer because there were some issues that are very salient. We are adjacent to him at Gardens in Los Angeles. But Mayor Morris, San Bernardino is I wouldn't say my neighbor city, but the Alameda Quarter East Coast all the way through and impacts your area. My biggest concern has been funding to do the great separations. We're able to get some funding, but TILO has not been processed yet. The administration feels it is some time. To me, that would be a great creator of jobs. How do you affect both?
I serve on the Metrolink board, and you know about accidents, and you know the danger. We regularly have tragic pedestrian incidents at grade crossings, and from that board table, it's clear of the need. Our neighboring city, Riverside, I think in the city itself, has over 20 grade crossings that really slow down the commerce of that city, more than any other city in the region. We desperately need those resources, and you're right. This is critical infrastructure to create a transit system that makes sense for both cargo as well as passenger transit. You mentioned in your opening statement, Congresswoman, that you were deeply concerned about the issue of transit funding. You know, I think it's critically important that we use this disaster as an opportunity to envision a new future for Southern California. Northern California has been much more visionary with the advent of transit systems that move people in alternative choices to the automobile. Southern California has remained auto-dependent with a great but crumbling freeway system, but we need to invest in infrastructure for transit. And this is an opportunity area for us, is to look at transit centers, at rapid transit bus lines, at light rail systems, and invest heavily in this future. It'll be upon us, and our children and grandchildren will inherit what we have or have not done. And I'd love to see stimulus dollars invested more heavily in that kind of visionary infrastructure that you've discussed.
Well, we need to get, maybe, there's not much room for fraud in the area of rate separations because they use every penny to be able to do it. Since the railroads only apply, 3 to 5% of matching funds, the state does not have the funding, and so it's mostly federal and local participation, and that's a sad state of affairs because you compromise the safety of the individuals at rate separations. That said, I'm looking also at Title 16, and if there are any project funds that, because there is such high unemployment, that those bids may have come under the estimates. What is happening to that money, and is that money being held accountable so that we can expand the projects, whether additional job creation, whether it's in Title 16 alone, it provides not only jobs, it provides clean access to water that is now almost as clean as potable. So those areas are of great concern because I do sit on them, and I'd certainly love to talk to Mayor Reed about your solar company because that is an issue that's where new job creation is going to be. But accountability of the funds that might be coming from the federal government to assist in the development, not only the training, but the new manufacturing companies coming and the assistance to be able to help them expand. Those are great issues.
The funding that I've seen that will come through the Department of Energy, DOE seems to be doing an excellent job at this time of working those issues. A year ago when I was in Washington, when the stimulus bill was being put together, the Department of Energy had one high-level appointee, that was Secretary Chu. And so the department is to write the regulations, issue the regulations, implement the program while growing itself, getting the staff in place, the congressionally approved appointees as well as all the senior staff. And they've been doing that while trying to manage the program. So they're, and I met with Jonathan Silver, who's the executive director of the loan guarantee program this week, and they are much better equipped to deal with that. But the kind of detail and the work that they're doing with our private sector companies to make sure the money is spent correctly, and I think is very good. And we have yet to see the money.
I'm running out of time, so I may
Okay.
interrupt you just briefly to say, be sure that you work with SBA, small business. Miguel Velasquez has been the champion for small business assistance to ensure that these small companies are able to get their caps lifted for loans.
Yes, increasing that capital.
Correct.
Especially for capital.
And that's so critical if we're going to have new entrepreneurs be able to build that. But we also need to ensure that the money is going directly to what it was intended to and not misused.
I quickly want to respond to your comment about the T-bill reauthorization. We need it sooner than later. And we need to look at it again.
Tell it to administration.
I
They're all
understand
ready.
that. When I'm talking to you, you talk to the president.
No, we don't.
I don't. We need that. We need to look at the caps on small starts and new starts. Those are the
Like
kinds
the
of,
grants?
yes, those are the things that we need to rebuild an economy in the new future.
Couldn't agree with you more, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right, thank you very much, Chairman. And I yield to Congresswoman Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thank you for the two of you testifying. It always helps us to have realistic, pertinent information. Let me ask you a couple of really direct questions, and we have a limited period of time. Mayor Morris, how many jobs did you say were created in your city and region based upon the stimulus funds?
Well, we have, on the stimulus package we put together for the I-215, that's about 2,300 jobs. We have within our city, probably thus far, 200 jobs. But as Mayor Reed suggested, we're still unfolding some of those resources. Those numbers will increase over the next 12 to 18 months. We're trying to be shovel-ready, and in particular, that's a challenge, as Mayor Reed suggests.
I understand. My next question is, of those jobs, how many were new and how many were you preserving?
In the city, we were preserving jobs. And those are high-cost jobs. I mean, a fully funded police officer or fire personnel or other city employee, it's a pretty heavy commitment. I said that in my testimony, that talking about creating new jobs and getting the most bang for our bucks, it's in new jobs out there in the community, in the construction industry, building infrastructure.
So, I'm sorry, we have to cut you off, but in Congress we have rules and we don't get the 10-minute extra that you get, that the chair gave you or the chair has, we only get 5. So, of the numbers that you said, you didn't, so besides transportation, which I'm getting to ask you the next question, you didn't reference any new jobs. They were all preserving jobs. And I don't have a problem with that. I'm just trying to understand accurately what happened.
Yeah, we
Okay.
basically
Yes.
used it in-house.
Okay. My next question is, of the transportation dollars that you used and of this highway project, did you bring any new minority contractors who were able to take advantage of that job?
We have a local contractor that won the bid, the large bid for the next 2 phases of the I-215, and several of the subcontractors, I believe, are minority contractors, but I haven't tracked the carefully, quite honestly.
Could you provide this
Yeah.
panel that
We
information?
will give you that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Reed, Mayor Reed, the same question to you. How many jobs you preserved?
The total, cumulative total is 335.
Right.
And of that, most of them are not new jobs with the paving contractor. They got the paving contract is usually people who are already working to keep them working. Because in the construction business, you might have a job not for very long. And so most of them are continuation jobs.
Okay, I understand. And of any construction jobs that you have, do you have any records in terms of how minority contractors were able to take advantage of the work?
I do not have that information.
Could you get that for us?
Sure.
Okay. My second point is, if you so appreciate the stimulus dollars, what I would recommend that you consider doing is helping us to let people know more about what happened. We took the heat for the votes, very tough votes for us, but unfortunately, I'll be very frank with you. I drive up and down the state and I see, Mayor Morris and whoever, this great project that you did. You got it done because President Obama and members of this Congress stood up and took the tough votes. And I'm going to be frank with you, if you expect us to do it again, one of my biggest concerns and lessons learned would be better acknowledging where it came from. Because we're getting pounded out there, and the American public, it is not resonating with them of what we did and what they're seeing. So if we're all in this boat together, we need your help to talk more about that. So I don't know if that's the places that you go, in the communities, everywhere. Let people know what happened, because only through that can we be able to step up and do something again. Finally, my next
Come to
question.
San Jose, you'll see the signs giving Congress and the federal government credit.
Oh, you're doing better than some of mine.
Our I-15 projects are, is on the bill.
The public doesn't know what are.
They don't.
We had an event that would knock your socks off when we opened up that contract. We had people from Washington, from the administration were there. It's a big cotton-picking deal.
Sir, what I'm talking about, Mayor Morris, is an ongoing communication with the public about how the funds were used, where did the funds come from, and what we did and what we need us to continue to do. think you will find greater continuance if you do so. My last question, the Government Accountability Office has noted that LA Unified School District is facing staff cuts up to 8,000 for the year 2010 and 2011. And in San Bernardino, Mayor Morris, the GAO says that you're going to have a $30.7 million budget shortfall that would cut 197 staff positions, including 94 teachers. What is your role with education, and what do you intend to do?
Well, I'm not a mayor. I don't have a subset of schools like Mayor Regoso under my charge. I am a former school board president before I was a judge, before I was a mayor, so I had some experience and deep concerns about these issues, and I'm working to get one of those great grants from Promise Neighborhoods from New York City to try to create a dynamic for the children's zone in Harlem. Our schools are highly challenged, as you suggest by your comments, in terms of performance as well as in terms of financing. I care deeply about this. I endorsed a host of publicly chartered schools in my community to create small academies that do a better job. So I am, as a mayor, I have an educational roundtable that works on these issues. I have no direct authority. All of our school districts in Inland Southern California have sent out, or will send out notices of termination for teachers. It is the saddest, most desperate situation I've seen in my lifetime.
Let me suggest the following, and I have to close because my time has expired. As you look at some of the stabilization money, some housing money, different things, categories that your particular city is receiving, that you consider putting together some programs to help teachers, to help various staff members as they go through these difficult times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your comments. Let me just ask a couple of quick things to both of you. You know, there's jobs bill. Do you have any suggestions as to what you think should happen with the jobs bill? You mentioned flexibility earlier. Could you be specific in terms of that?
From my point of view, it's, word is block grants, block grants, block grants. Send it to us. General provisions where there's obvious areas of need and employment opportunities, and we will we'll knock your socks off with good results. We know where the problems are in our cities. We know where the opportunities are. We know how to mix and match funds, federal, state, and local. One of them, I'll just give you an example real fast. You've got this federal act called the Second Chance Act. We've got returning parolees to our city. As the California prisons overpopulated, and we need to have a new dynamic in terms of how we do business and justice in the state, but it requires a 50% grant, a match. But we applied for a second chance grant. We were allowed to take some state funds to match your funds and some other local funds. We made the match. But it took some creative movement of funds to create a 50% match to the federal Second Chance Act. Give it to us without too many strings attached. We can mix and match dollars and programs to create, I think, the greatest impact on employment. That would be my word.
Mr. Reed.
We will happily spend any money that you wish to direct to the cities. We will effectively spend it. We will spend it the way you want it spent. But those jobs are likely only to last until the checks run out. And I would recommend that you try to focus the jobs bill on areas where you can help the private sector create long-term, permanent jobs. Access to capital for small businesses is critical. Big businesses have other sources, but our small businesses, they create most of the jobs in this country. We're having very difficult times getting access to the capital markets, not just our solar companies, it is companies of all kinds. If clean up the banking system and the capital markets, I know that's a small challenge, but that would be the most important thing, because the private sector is going to create those long-term jobs that are going to help all of us.
I join Matt Reed in that quest. He's right. Focusing on that long-term private sector entrepreneurial kinds of investments is critical, as is investment in the infrastructure for the future of this nation. Those, I think, are the
job for the teachers?
I know from talking to my school board members that there are teachers who worked this year or working now because of stimulus dollars that are going to be laid off next year because of the cuts in education. So there is, I don't know of any way, if the money came directly to the cities, that we could give it out to the school districts and boards. That we've never experimented with that, so I don't know how that might work.
Mr. Chairman, if you yield, I might be able to shine some light on how it's structured here in California.
Sure.
Yes, we send monies to the governor of California, and the governor then appropriates money based on a formula called ADA, average daily attendance, to the over 1,600 school districts. There's a firewall between city governments and school districts. In the county, or in LA Unified School District, I should say, there are 27 cities. The city government really has no responsibility for those schools. The responsibility is within the school district. We fund them based on that formula. So you might have some of your cities in LA Unified, but it covers about 910 square miles, the district does, and we have close to 1 million children in the district, and so city government has really nothing to do. Now, in the case of Los Angeles, the mayor was able to get the school board, 7 members, to vote to give him 10 schools. And the money in this state follows the child, so that money that would come to the district then would follow the child into some special charter school setup or whatever.
Right.
Yield back.
Let me explain, because in our city,